Hey everyone, it is Sleepy Reader, aka Damien, and this is my comic book countdown. I read 10 comic books, brand new comic books from this past Wednesday, and I am gonna rank them from 10 up to number one based on my personal enjoyment. Super subjective, in the moment, how I feel about these comics. So this is kind of my comic book reading diary rather than comic book reviews per se. You can take it any way you want. I also wanted to mention that I will be on Comic Crazy's channel tonight, Monday night, on a live Comics Jeopardy. You may or may not see me mention this in time for you to catch it live, but you may want to check out Comic Crazy's channel. Brian, he does a great weekly Comic Hall Rewind, as he calls it, I think on Thursdays, and he does a lot of other great stuff. An excellent and underappreciated channel, I think. So please check out Comic Crazy, and if you can, check out the Comics Jeopardy. I'm particularly thinking of the subjective nature of things this week because my number 10 book at the bottom of my list was Two Moons by Arcudi and Giordano and Cox, the colorist, Haisler, the letterer. The the big flaw here for me is in the script. I lost the thread. This was one of my favorite books, so I feel really bad about, you know, I just don't get it anymore. I don't know what's going on. I've kind of lost track of who all the characters are. I do plan to go back and read it more closely, read this whole arc more closely, maybe when the next issue comes out, because I think that'll be the end of the arc. And maybe then maybe my enjoyment of this issue will then increase. But I was so frustrated reading this that I really did not like it, even though there's some cool art moments. Whereas there's a big double page spread that's a real grabber. The sort of Indian mythology based monsters and ghouls that we see in particular are drawn in a really cool way, but it doesn't make up for me being so confused and so frustrated, and having high expectations of enjoying this and then not enjoying it. That's particularly a problem for me. And then in at number 9, a comic book I didn't have as high expectations for, but it was hurt by certain things. Seven Swords from Aftershock Comics by Evan Doughty and Federico Dell'Occhio. I don't know. Evan Doughty is a Hollywood screenwriter, and this has all along felt like a pitch for a cool adventure movie with a bunch of adventure characters coming together from the age of D'Artagnan. Well, D'Artagnan is the lead character, the age of the Three Musketeers, with Richelieu as the bad guy. Sort of, and then we've got Don Juan and who's the guy with the big nose? Brain fart whenever you're in front of the camera. But a bunch of historical novel kind of characters thrown together in an adventure, and this is the climax. But unfortunately, I think it's been 3 or 4 months since we've seen this comic, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just been 2, but there was a bit of a delay, and I kind of forgot what happened at the end of last issue, although I remember the general outlines of the story. And the climax is a confrontation with the devil in an arena set up by Richelieu, and the devil does kind of a psychological job on each of the characters, causing them to become, I guess, impotent, or perhaps seducing them to come over to his side. And turns out all of this is a plot by the devil to sort of attack Earth with recruiting these 7 swords into becoming his 7 princes of hell. But it's all, I don't know, it feels kind of rushed. Feels like it could have been more issues. It also just maybe is not the story I was hoping for. I wanted more sort of dashing swordplay and adventure on a less metaphysical level, perhaps. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see if this ever comes out as a movie. In at number 8 is a comic that I'm already starting to lose patience with. I really liked the first 2 issues, and then the third issue was starting to raise questions in my mind in terms of overly awkward storytelling. And this fourth issue of Gunslinger Spawn, it almost feels like Todd McFarlane, the writer, kind of changed his mind on the direction of the story. I thought that Gunslinger Spawn was going on this road trip with this young kid that he just kind of teamed up with, whose father was evil or maybe good. He was on the side of the angels, who seem to be evil here. I don't. My Spawn background at the moment is not so great. I've been really loving or really enjoying the Brett Booth artwork. I've never liked Brett Booth's artwork more than I have in Gunslinger Spawn. He's really doing lots of interesting stuff. But perhaps he's not like he's a little bit of a confusing storyteller as visually, not a whole lot. But then you add into this sense that Todd McFarlane is a bit too loose with his storytelling. And then with this issue, just it seems like the kid he was on the road with has disappeared, just not there anymore. And this the clown from hell has shown up along with the what's his name? The Despoiler? No, the Violator, and we just have kind of a big confrontation slash battle scene, and it doesn't seem to have anything to do, to me, with what I'd been reading before, and so it was kind of fun to read, but it was also frustrating because I wanted the story to continue and develop and enrichen from what we've gotten, especially in the first two issues. But there's certainly cool visuals here. Certainly a wild and crazy ride. I feel like Todd McFarlane has lots of great ideas, and of course hires great artists. But that he's not good at like story structure and pacing and putting it all together somehow. So I don't know how long I'll remain patient with this. I decided of all the proliferating spawns that this was the one I was most interested in, and I thought I would stick with it, but we'll see for how long. It is, it's 20 pages of art plus a really nice hardcover, or, thick cover, and always good cover artwork. Although there was another cover that I saw when I saw Travis at Mocha Express last week that looked even better to me, but the shop I went to didn't have that cover, or did only have this cover. So I'll give it a few more issues, but I'm just starting to think, well, maybe I'm not going to be reading as much Spawn as I thought. I never was someone who could stick with Spawn very long. I read a few issues early on, or not early on, just before the 300s, like in the 290s, when he was teamed up with Eric Larson, and I kind of enjoyed their little team up, although there wasn't a lot of story there. It was just a lot of fun visual action. In at number 7 was Cowboy Bebop. I was just curious what this would be like. I didn't come into it with a lot of expectations. I knew that it was it was being released because of the live action TV show. I've heard the live action TV show wasn't very good, and that's already been canceled, but I haven't watched it at all. I saw the art, and I thought, oh, this is a kind of art that I like quite a bit. It's nothing like the anime art in Cowboy Bebop, but it's kind of nice maybe that they're just going for their own look. Now, I guess maybe the characters are based on the look of the TV show characters, the live action characters, perhaps, with the character that's been made black instead of Asian, I think. I'm not sure. Anyway, I really liked this visually. The story was okay. You could see it was like a Cowboy Bebop story in the sense that there was kind of shenanigans at a casino. I guess it's on another planet. So I'm not sure what planet we're on or what moon or whatever. I don't know if it says anywhere. Tharsis, Mars. So we're on Mars, but there was nothing here to make you feel like you weren't on Earth. maybe that's intentional and that's the Cowboy Bebop way. But overall, it was kind of it was an interesting enough story, but it lacked, and I don't know how you put it into comics. My main thing about Cowboy Bebop is not just the characters and the plot, but the style, the vibe, the energy of Cowboy Bebop, the anime. That's all I know, and that's missing here somehow. And how you'd put that into comics, you'd have to go for a completely different way. I mean, to some degree, the artist gives it his vibe, and he's a very good artist, or she. I didn't even look. What's the name? I don't think the credits are on the cover. Oh, Mathurin, and colorist Roman Titov. Both do a very good job. So, yeah, I kind of enjoyed it. It's the kind of thing, I was not a fan of the cover. It's too smooth, and I like a rougher looking cover, I guess. But what I was trying to say is it's something I might pick up again depending on the week and my mood. Depending on whether I have a lot of other comics to read or not. I feel like I can kind of take or leave it. It might make a fun, rainy days afternoon read when it comes out in trade or something. If it makes it all the way, given with the cancellation of the show and everything. In at number 6 is an excellent comic that I keep asking, has it overstayed its welcome, which is Once and Future by Kieran Gillen, who is a writer whose work sometimes works fantastically for me and other times just leaves me with a incredible artwork from Dan Mora, incredible coloring from Tamara Bonvillain, and they do not rest on their laurels. That art team works their butts off in every issue, and this certainly would be a good comic for me to do a cutaway and show lots of brilliant pages. The last issue we had a brief reveal of King Lear showing up. He's there for a minute, then they move on. And at the end of this issue, a little bit of a spoiler, sorry. You can skip ahead if you want till I'm not holding up this comic. But at the end of the issue, we get a reveal of Robin Hood. How long will Robin Hood stay in the story? How important will he be to the story? It's kind of like we're flashing through too many of these references. I want the story to kind of slow down and develop, but I'll keep getting it. I mean, it is what it is, right? This is what Kieran Gillen wants to do, sort of fast forward, jump through all his ideas about British and perhaps European mythology eventually, but mostly British, different kind of mythology of the British history. So yeah, it's for the art in the end, but I think it nags at me because I love this kind of material. I feel like Kieran Gillen could do more with it, but he's doing what he wants to do. I know he's the kind of art writer who is an artist of his craft. He has a very definite concept for every book he does. You can tell every book has a different concept. And I guess the concept here is this sort of mad dash through this insane nightmare version of British mythology. So, speaking of insane nightmares, my number 5 book is Ice Cream Man. It has my cover of the month, cover of the week. It's a non-cover, and I actually love that daring of it's a mock-up of a random page, seemingly random page in the dictionary, but it includes the important word etymology. And I think there's other words in here that may be on the cover here that may be clues that I should go back to now that I've read the story and refer to it. We've got egocentric and emaciate and emasculate, endanger, inflame, effigy, effervescent, ear-splitting, enmity. And we've got both entomology and etymology are both on here. Anyway, this believe it or not, this cover raised my expectations for a really clever issue about words. And although it was an enjoyable read and certainly, continued in the creepy nightmare way that Ice Cream Man does, it didn't have for me the impact and the cleverness that I was expecting because of this cover. So Ice Cream Man is generally one of my. I think it was on my top of the year list for 2021, and it's been a top book, ever since I first discovered it, and for me, and this issue just felt like a weak link to me. Now it may be a link to the more important overstory that is apparently part of Ice Cream Man. I mean, at times it seems like there is no larger story, but every once in a while we flash into something about this sort of extra dimensional or extra multiversal creature who is Ice Cream Man and a few other characters. And I think maybe they make appearances in the dream sequences and possibly the guru at the end that we meet. I mean, I just did not know what to make of this guru at all, but perhaps he is one of these creatures, the same as Ice Cream Man. But I personally would rather Ice Cream Man stick with the short stories and not do too much with the overarching thing. But my ultimate complaint about this is the character is an entomologist and he's searching for the ultimate word, and that's a really cool idea. Did I say that right? He's a etymologist, not an entomologist. He's an etymologist who's spent his entire life obsessed by nothing but words, and he's searching for the ultimate origin of language or the ultimate word. And of course, the word was God or something like that from the Bible. I don't know if there's an attempt to reference that in here. But so I just felt like there was so much more to do with this material than they found a way to do it here. And given that they don't usually return to a given situation, I really wish they could spend for once, I wish they could do like a 2-issue story about something about an Etymologist. Number 4 on my list is The Death of Doctor Strange number 5. And it is the finale of this series. And I thought it ended quite well. There is a weird thing where... Oh, this will be a spoiler. Skip a few seconds ahead if you don't want to get it. A weird thing where Doctor Strange is brought back to life, and then he says, well, you can't escape death that easily, and then he disappears into the ether. I can see how that was kind of clever, but it also felt, I don't know, like a cheap twist somehow. But it didn't bother me too much, but I hope they come back to it. And well, I think what it highlighted for me is this needed to be maybe a 6-issue mini or a 7-issue mini. I guess it used to be arcs were always about 6 issues, right? And then the trades were always made up of about 6 issues. But now trades have gotten thinner, and sometimes they're just 4 issues or just 5 issues. And so miniseries from most publishers have become shorter too. And so I think, Jed MacKay, the writer, did a very good job with the space he had to work with. But I, in a sense, maybe, looking back on it, and he probably had to write it issue by issue to deadlines, but looking back on it, if you could rewrite it, you might front load a little more content in the earlier issues, because there was a lot to cover in this last issue. But I thought he did a very good job, and I thought that artist Lee Garbett made a nice comeback from some of his weaker issues. Here I think he could still do an even better job than this. I bet he's still on kind of a tight deadline. But I feel like compared to the previous issue or two, he really stepped up his game, and I really enjoyed a lot of the artwork here. And and I guess another part of me, wanting this to be a bit longer is I really enjoyed the exploration of the sort of fragment of Stephen Strange and his experience of the world, of the future to him, and of Stephen Strange's own future relationship with the people in the world around him. but that was the strength of the book, and it did play out to the end. So anyway, I was very satisfied. It makes me kind of excited for Jed McKay. I have found out he is going to be doing the next iteration of the Sorcerer Supreme, which will be Clea, the old apprentice, love, student, and all around longtime important character from the Doctor Strange mythos. So I think that's a great choice for the next Sorcerer Supreme. And I'm sure Stephen Strange will eventually be back. And hopefully when he's back, it'll be him and Clea, because I think one of the points of this comic is how important that relationship was to making Stephen Strange an interesting character. Cheers. If you're wondering, yes, I am a person who's always thirsty. In at number 3 for me, and I'm kind of surprised it made it so high, actually. I think it was after I read it and kind of thought about it a bit, I liked it more, was The Human Target, book number 4. I've been loving the art and been okay on the writing on this book, from the writing by Tom King, the art by Greg Smallwood, another very creative cover, although I loved issue 3's cover even more. He's got about 8 days left to live. I would say it's interesting talking about the length of comics. These are commercial decisions, right, rather than creative decisions. This has been planned as a 12-issue miniseries, I believe. Is it 12? Yeah, because he's got 12 days to live. But it feels like Tom King... I don't know if Tom King has enough story to stretch it out, although some people love what Tom King does so much that they want it really stretched out. But at times I was kind of bored during this issue. I kind of got the idea, and I got the idea. One of the big ideas in here being that the Blue Beetle just can't stop talking. Like his mind is always going, and he also seems to feel kind of guilty or something, and so he keeps trying to talk about whether the Human Target should consider him a strong suspect in his search for who tried to poison Lex Luthor and ended up poisoning the Human Target instead, as he tried to, in this classic film noir kind of way, is trying to solve his own murder before he dies. And as usual, Tom King wants to cut the superheroes down to size. So Blue Beetle is cut down to size here. Although the female character, Ice, is not cut down to size. In fact, by the end of the story, she's risen up to a higher level than we might have thought. And I think that that twist, so to speak, just kind of a mental, intellectual twist of how we view her, is what made me really like this book in the end. Plus all the great artwork from Smallwood. But there were plenty of times when it just got kind of tiresome to listen to the endless chatter. But I guess that was the point, the endless chatter of the Blue Beetle in particular. And also a bit tiresome to read the thought processes in the caption boxes of I never remember his name, of the Human Target. Should come to me, but they don't mention his first name that much. Mr. Chance, something Chance, interesting name. But anyway, so it wasn't, I don't know. I was kept interested enough to keep going, but I faltered here and there. But by the time I got to the end, I thought, okay, that's kind of clever. And I'm curious what Tom King has up his sleeve next. And I'm curious about the evolution of Chance and Ice's relationship is going to be. One thing that confused me is, were we getting the revelation that, yes, she wants to sleep with him, and this is the first time? Because I thought they slept together in issue 2. I was pretty sure. So I don't know. I don't know. But it seems at the end of this, it seems like, well, this is the first time they're having sex. They're doing the nasty bumping on the icy surface of of her bed. Um, so anyway, we'll see. And ultimately, we've got Saga number 55, the return of Saga. And it felt like slipping right back into a familiar world. There was nothing. It was it was almost as if 3 years hadn't happened in terms of my experience as a reader. I kind of was reluctant to like go back. It felt in a way like I want to move forward. I don't want to go back to Saga that I haven't really, except for all the nagging from Gore Vidal, haven't really thought about a lot for the past 3 years. But once I started reading, it was just like, ah, yeah, Saga. This is a good read. It feels good. It looks good. It flows perfectly. The all the elements are always well balanced, and the storytelling just seems perfectly timed, and all of that. This team of Vaughn and Fiona Staples, and look at that, Fiona Staples' name comes first on the cover. Interesting. That's how they do it in Europe, I believe, on their bande dessinée albums. I think the artist is always listed first. And yes, we get the quick, shocking moments. I'd say the only false beat for me, in fact, was this scene where the Will and what's her name, Gwen, who's the old girlfriend of I forgot the husband's name. He's dead now. Alana's husband. She's his old girlfriend. His name will come back to me. Marco. And the Will has brought Marco's skull to her. And then what does she want to do but have sex in front of the skull, out in the open, and in front of the cat, who she says likes to watch. So traditionally, Saga always has a shocking scene every issue, and I guess this is that shocking scene. And I don't know. It just, even though it was successfully shocking and makes her a really creepy character, it also it seemed to break that perfect rhythm and storytelling of the rest of the issue. So that would be my only negative, because it went on. It was probably the longest single scene in the whole comic by far. Let's see if we start when they first meet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pages out of the comic. A couple of interesting facts. They mention in here that Saga has sold 7 million copies worldwide. That's incredible for an indie comic. I don't even know if that included the floppy issues. I think it maybe was talking about the collected editions. They also mentioned that Fiona Staples has had a baby. So also, I mean, that's probably partially why the break took longer. But even if she has like a 1-year-old or 2-year-old now, that's pretty hard work doing the more than full-time work of drawing a comic book and raising a baby. So hopefully that works out for her. Hopefully her husband's helping a lot. And then it's a $2.99 comic. It was a double-sized issue. I assume they intend to continue with $2.99. I guess that's not going to affect Marvel or DC. I don't know if it's going to affect any other, Spawn, and the Spawn books are already doing that too. I don't know if it's going to affect any other comic book publishers in their marketing approach. And then the other thing that I mentioned on the live video I did recently, when I went into my shop on Wednesday and it was just like noonish, he said he had already that week signed up 20 new people to have pull boxes, because every person who came in and said, well, they wanted to make sure to get their individual issues of Saga and make sure he held them for him. He said, well, you can start a pull box and I'll give you a 5% discount if you even have just one comic in your pull box. My shop gives a pretty good deal there. I get a 25% discount for the number of books I get. And while I was in the shop, there was a woman there who was coming in for Saga and was concerned about being sure to get all the issues. And he signed her up, and he talked with her about what comics she liked, and they went around the shop together. And he pointed out some other graphic novels she might like. I know she got Little Bird, and she got Lady Killer by Joelle Jones, and I showed her Echolands, and she decided to pick up the first issue of Echolands, which was still on the racks, and see whether she liked that. So Saga, I like Saga a lot, but I love it for what it does. It's really pushing forward the world of indie comics in the comic book shop venue. And I like to imagine that indie comics can save the whole comic book shop ecosystem over the long run, more than Marvel and DC with their fickle corporate owners. Okay, I was torn between that and what I actually picked as my number one, but the truth be told, the thing I enjoyed the most this week, as I often do, was the latest Usagi Yojimbo. Last week, I think my number one was the most recent issue of the new Usagi Yujimbo, and then every month there is also a reprint series going on. They just wrapped up one reprint series, and they've started a new one called Lone Goat and Kid. And while the previous miniseries was a 6-issue story, at least judging by this first issue, this may be a series of standalones. So this issue, it may tie into further stories, but it was completely a standalone issue that was about a noblewoman asks Usagi to go retrieve the swords of her husband, who has been murdered, because the swords are part of the family honor and have been in the family for generations. And he goes to the village where he was murdered to investigate and find the swords. And he discovers the peasant mistress of the nobleman who is keeping the nobleman's swords as her one keepsake of their love. And her greedy brother who wants to sell the swords to Usagi for money, and so that he can be a big shot at the bar buying everyone drinks. And well, I don't want to give away any more than that, but the story continues from there. And it's great how Stam Sakai uses this simple story to give it, without making any judgment calls or saying anything himself authorally, a view of kind of some of the layers of feudal Japanese society and what that means a little glimpse of what different people's lives are like, and their fates. And while Usagi remains true to his concept of honor, we as readers can question the honor of this society in general if we want to, and the meaning of it all. So anyway, I loved that it was a tight, closed-ended story, but also had that open-ended feature to it that I could really enjoy. So a particularly strong, although last week's issue of Usagi was particularly strong also, a particularly strong issue in the Usagi reprint series. My only complaint about this reprint series is I wish there was a page in the back with some notes of when this appeared and where it originally appeared, or something, a little bit of context. I don't even know if this reprint series is doing everything in chronological order, if you looked at all the various miniseries of reprints, or if they're jumping around and picking out, favorite story sections, story arcs, or what have you. So that was my week in comics. I hope you're all having a great comic book week, and I will be back soon.